Hey, what's up? It's another episode of Locked On Raptors here to begin your week as the Raptors continue to go through life with most of their team in the COVID protocols. And last night they played a game in said state with 4 replacement players on hand, 4 regular roster players, and they predictably lost very badly to the Cleveland Cavaliers on Sunday night. We're going to dig into that game, our big takeaways, talk about some of the replacement guys and the work they did. And of course, we got our due to the game to hand out as well. That's all coming up on today's episode of Locked On Raptors with special guest Vivek Jacob.
You are Locked On Raptors, your daily Toronto Raptors podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hey, what's going on? Welcome to episode number 1085 of Locked On Raptors for Monday, December the 27th. I'm your host, Sean Woodley of RaptorsHQ.com. You can find me on Twitter as always at WoodleySean. You can find the show at Locked On Raptors. And of course, you can find the podcast free and available on all your favorite podcast platforms. Please subscribe to, follow, rate, review, tell a friend, all that good stuff. Plus, you can find the show for free on YouTube as well. And we'd very much appreciate you hitting that big red button to subscribe. And as always, thank you for making us your first listen of the day. All right, on today's show, we are talking about a 144-99 Raptors loss to the Cleveland Cavaliers last night in a game that really tangibly means nothing because the Raptors had 8 available players, 4 of whom are regular bench guys for the team, and the other 4 were replacement players making their first appearances in Raptors uniforms an hour and 20 minutes after having met Nick Nurse and got a bit of a walkthrough on how the Raptors do things. So pretty adverse situation for this Raptors team. I don't think you really could have expected much more. The first quarter was really fun. We'll dig into our big takeaways from it. And we are joined here, of course, by Vivek Jacob from Raptors.com. Big V, how are you, my friend?
I'm doing well. I mean, got some quality time with the family over the holidays and
good.
Watch some, at least what looks like NBA basketball on Christmas, followed by some not so NBA looking basketball on the 26th.
Yeah, the NBA's got to be pretty happy with the way the schedule went, and that the games on Saturday ended up being actually kind of all right. Although I did not, I have to admit, watch many of them or any of them at all, other than the Lakers game a little bit. But yeah, the Sunday slate not exactly overwhelming with great competitive spirit or whatever. I'm having a hard time with this though, Big V, because obviously these games shouldn't really be happening. They should probably just take it easy and give these teams a sec to get their guys back so you can actually have some competitive integrity to the standings and all that stuff. And there is a very real chance that this loss the Raptors sustained, or whichever losses they sustained while they're still down guys and they're playing replacement players who they've signed in, it could cost them down the line. That's very much a thing that could take place. And so it's hard to not be a bit of a grump about it because it's annoying and it's silly, and all these other teams, as you mentioned to me before coming on air, I will steal your talking point about Tom Ziller, who wrote in his Good Morning It's Basketball, sort of about how the teams that are signing players ahead of time are maybe getting burned because they actually have players on hand as opposed to the ones that are scrambling who are forced to have their games postponed. It is what it is. I'm trying to actually try to see the silver linings here, though, Big V, where it's undeniably cool and awesome that these guys who are getting called in as replacement guys, as hardship signings, are getting a chance to play in the NBA, sometimes for the first time, sometimes for a second chance or a third chance or a Joe Johnson chance, whatever one he's on. And then you also get guys like, Xavier Moon and Javin DeLaurier and Cap Barber from the CEBL who are getting signed in, which is very exciting and it's sort of going straight to my heart. So I'm trying to just view it as hey, these games are a minor inconvenience that are actually a platform for these guys to potentially prolong their careers. And that is actually what matters most. Is that the way you're trying to view things as well? Or are you still like me and sort of my darkest insides wanting to sort of burst out, just pissed off with how the NBA has handled this whole thing?
Yeah, I mean, I'd probably say both. I would say that, yeah, it's really cool that these players are getting an opportunity that they wouldn't normally have. And, especially, around the holidays, Christmas is a special time in the NBA. So if they got an opportunity to be in a game like that, that's really cool for them. And then you think of the other side of it, and it's like, I don't know. I kind of want the NBA to sort of lean one way or the other, right? Like at this point, I mean, I don't know where they'd have to get to again scientifically to be accepting of it, but if players are double vaccinated and boosted and feeling no symptoms, I'm kind of like, all right, let's just get on with it. That was supposed to be the purpose of getting the vaccine, right? And so that you don't feel these symptoms, or you don't get sick as much, and that seems to be the case. So why not just treat it, like you would a cold or whatever it is?
Yeah, I mean, I feel like you would have to,
and again,
find
specifically for those who are double vaccinated and
totally. And I think you'd have to find a way to kind of insulate like the team support staff from potential of catching it or whatever, because like that's I think the bigger concern here is like, I don't think, much like I think you or I are not worried about catching Omicron necessarily and having any adverse effects as people who are vaccinated and boosted and all that. I do just kind of like, it gets into a bit of like an icky territory for me when you're like, oh, well, they're not symptomatic, so just let them play. Because like, no, that's not the point. Like, they spread it to other people, and still a small percentage of people of a large number go into hospitals, a lot of people. And so I don't know. I'm very sort of in between on the whole thing. I totally get the side that's like, hey, maybe just like let them play if they're asymptomatic and boosted. But there are the other sort of tendrils of that decision that kind of come into play. And I frankly, I don't think the NBA, honestly, have proven that they really care about that. So maybe they will move that direction. We're already seeing them lower the quarantine times, which actually could bode well for the Raptors in terms of getting guys back in time for the next game against the Sixers. We're not sure just who yet, but we do know that they have brought the quarantine time down from 10 days to 6 days. And most of the Raptors guys were put into the protocols early last week. So perhaps there is a chance that a couple guys could be back for the Tuesday game against Philly. We'll see. I'm going to try to lean into and make the best of what we've seen
make that official
from these games. I thought that they made it official over the weekend. That could be wrong. But I do believe, like, I think that was like the effort they did in order to get guys back for Christmas. Am I wrong there?
I was under the impression, like, for example, Giannis, he just happened to get like the 2 negative tests within 24 hours, and that's why he will come back. I did not see the 6 days made official. And again, just to explain my point further, overall, I just want the NBA to lean one way or the other, right?
Yeah, totally.
I feel like they're dipping, their toes in both ends of the water, and it's like either you pause the season, and say this is not something that we can deal with, or you play and say no, this is, like, in some ways you're saying it's insignificant, and in some ways you're not. So which one is it, right? So that's kind of my point.
That's a good point. Yeah.
So either pause it, or you just let them play, the ones who are double vax boosted and asymptomatic. Yeah. It's
I don't envy anybody making the decisions here. Let me tell you that for damn sure. It's not a fun time. We should, however, talk about Yuta Watanabe, I think, because he's probably like the big takeaway from this game. If we're trying to pull takeaways, even Nick Nurse after the game said as much. He was like, yeah, big takeaways from this one. Something like conditioning wasn't there, and Yuta Watanabe is a god king. I think that was a direct quote. Yuta last night with 26 points, 13 boards, an assist to steal a block on 11 of 20 shooting, 2 of 5 from downtown. What were your impressions of Yuta Watanabe, who continues to impress? Of course, he's played like 11 or 12 games for the team this season, and he has very much been in line with the turnaround in the overall form of the team, the way the defense is played, and now his offensive game popping off a little bit with some opportunity. What do you think what we saw last night from Yuta means going forward?
I mean, in terms of what it means going forward, it's hard to say beyond just I like the aggressiveness, right? And whether he gets 10 minutes or whether he gets 25 minutes, you want to see that assertiveness in shooting the ball. You would like to see the efficiency that he showed in this one, that's for sure. Knocking down a couple threes, over 50% from the field for the night. I think that's something that you take away and say, okay, how do you get that on a consistent basis? Beyond that, I don't think he's going to get as many on-ball reps as he did. He's going to have to be content with, just taking shots from the corners or above the break, or, just scoring off cuts or offensive rebounds, that type of thing. So, yeah, I think the biggest thing for me is just let's sustain that aggressiveness and that efficiency.
Yeah, I mean, I think for me, it just was sort of like a confirmation of what I've kind of thought all along, which is that Yuta is one of the 6 or 7 best players on this team, and I would be fully on board with him being like used as such. He's been kind of sporadic in terms of, is he getting more than 20 minutes? Is he not? Like, where's he slotting in when they're at full health? But I think, like we've seen, the impact he's had on the defense has been enormous. The extra spacing he provides has been vital for a team that doesn't have a ton of spacing right now, especially in the second unit with Svi Mykhailiuk like shooting the way he has all season, which is bad. I think, there's just no reason not to treat him like he is one of the trusted 7 or whatever it is on the team. And he can play in all sorts of different lineups for this team as well. He can slide down and play the 4. He can slide up and play the 2 in some jumbo lineups and be a kind of like roving off ball, move through screens and, do some stuff off the catch and stuff like that. Like I'm fully on like unleash Yuta in a more profound way than we've seen so far. And they've tried to do it a little bit more this season, I think. Like, he's been sort of heavily featured in their second units and whatnot. But I think, there's no reason he shouldn't be playing like 26, 27 minutes a game as, a really trusted piece, filling in on sort of all those positions, right? He can fill in behind Gary Trent Jr. if Svi Mykhailiuk's not playing very well. He can fill in as a small ball 4 if Chris Boucher's not playing very well. And I think I'm fully on board with seeing more of it, because he just does everything that you want from a role player, from the secondary creation to the sort of knockdown shooting that he's kind of developing into here. And then we saw like Olympic Yuta last night with a little bit more in terms of off the bounce juice. And yeah, we're never going to see that fully come to life, but could he be like a second or third option in a bench unit? Hell yeah. Have him kind of space around to Scotty Barnes, Gary Trent Jr. run second unit. And I think you're laughing, and you can kind of have him take a little bit more agency. So yeah, exciting to see Yuta do that. I don't think it's terribly surprising to a lot of people who have been kind of on the Yuta train for a while and who watched the Olympics, but good nonetheless to see him, get to empty the clip in a game in which they very much needed anybody to empty the clip. We are going to continue on here. We're going to dig into the replacement guys and talk about the collection of Daniel Oturu and Tremont Waters and DJ Wilson and Juwan Morgan, and dig into how they performed in their first games with the Raptors on very, very short notice. That's coming up in just 1 second here. But first, I want to tell you about our friends over at Truebill, who are saving you money by helping you cancel the subscriptions that you no longer want or need. This is the time of year where you're going to sign up for a lot of stuff. You get a new app or something to go with a gift you got or whatever, and you sign up, and then you realize, oh no, I should not have done that. This is something I'm going to be paying for the rest of time. Truebill is here to help you cancel those subscriptions that you have forgotten about or that you no longer want or need. They help you identify those and simply help you stop. And they do it for you because they make it incredibly easy. You just link your accounts and Truebill will cancel your unwanted subscriptions in one tap. And your Truebill concierge is there when you need them to cancel unwanted subscriptions as well, so you don't have to. Truebill has over 2 million users and has helped save them over $100 million. That's a lot of scratch that you should not be spending on things like e-card websites and all the other crap I pay for. My God, it's unbelievable the amount of stuff that I just get emails for being like, oh, you paid for it again this month. Not anymore, because Truebill is here to stop that entirely. Don't fall for subscription scams. Start canceling today at truebill.com/lockedonnba. Go right now to truebill.com/lockedonnba. It could save you thousands a year. Is truebill.com/lockedonnba. All right, continuing on here with your first listen of the day with Vivek Jacob from Raptors.com. And Big V, let's dig into the replacement guys, shall we? Juwan Morgan, Daniel Oturu, Tremont Waters, and, of course, DJ Wilson, who got the start for the Raptors alongside the regular 4 roster players. Where do you want to begin here? I think we have an inkling as to where we're going to go with the dude of the game at the end of the show, so maybe we'll save that guy for last. Let's start with Juwan Morgan, shall we? Comes in, plays 27 minutes, 5 points, 4 boards, hits a 3. Pretty quiet stat line, but I thought he looked pretty reasonable out there. Any thoughts on Juwan Morgan, a childhood friend of OG Anunoby?
Yeah, I think off the top, just we have to acknowledge how difficult this circumstance is for them.
Impossible. Impossible. Here,
Yeah.
learn Nick Nurse's defense in 20 minutes. Go.
Exactly. And, when Yuta Watanabe is talking about, hey, the first time we met these 4 guys is on the team bus to the arena.
Yep.
And, usually, their walkthrough is in the morning. And now they're doing it the evening, 75 minutes before the game, because it's only at 2:00 that they recognize that, okay, they've been able to get through the protocol testing, okay, and they will have 8 players to play the game.
Yeah, that was a fun little game of wait and see we were playing yesterday. Good times.
And so they go through that. You had DJ Wilson, who was, in Vegas, then flies to Chicago for a game that doesn't get played, then goes to Los Angeles to spend Christmas Eve with his family, then flies out on Christmas Day to Cleveland. So you have all of that. So it's crazy circumstances that they're dealing with, but obviously bottom line, they get this opportunity. They have to take it. So yeah, Morgan, I think Nick Nurse hit the nail on the head. It's like every player kind of had their turn in terms of showing their flashes. And so Morgan, I think he's someone who stands out as a guy who could potentially, with time, learning the system and whatnot, who could be like, one of those right place, right time guys. And then Tremont Waters, a bit erratic for me with the passing. He is not shy to throw a pass. He is not shy to shoot either. But I liked his game awareness overall. Like he was always looking for that hit ahead pass. He was always aware of like time and score. There was that 3 that he took to maintain the 2-for-1 that I liked. That he didn't make the shot, but I think there's that assertiveness at the point guard position that he has, even if he's lacking in size and things like that. That bodes well for however long he needs to be on this team.
Yeah, I got to say, when I was watching Tremont Waters in that first quarter, which is the only quarter that actually happened last night, it was a beautiful game, and then it ended. It was weird how it happened that way. But when I was watching him in that first quarter, I was like, it'd be cool if Malachi Flynn played with this aggression. Like, isn't this what we've wanted from him his entire NBA career? And like when he's shown it, he's been good, and when he's not, it's been kind of a tough slog. I'm not saying Tremont Waters is better than Malachi Flynn. I don't think that's fair, obviously, to use this as an opportunity to slag Flynn necessarily, but like the level of just like, I'm going to look for my shot, and I'm going to throw some crazy passes, but I'm also going to make some good reads and kind of add some juice to the half court offense. That would be cool if Malachi Flynn would take that on. And so that was sort of a little tidbit that I felt from the game. Juwan Morgan, I liked when he was out there too. Like you said, in time, you could see him kind of having the physical profile to potentially be like a Nick Nurse fave, like, get in there like Stanley Johnson did last season, for example. And I guess that's like kind of an interesting question. We'll get to Oturu and Wilson in a sec here, but like, do you think there's any chance that one of these guys does kind of seize the day here and take a roster spot? Like, it's tough to figure out who loses their job on the team. Maybe it's just like they end things with Dragic and say, you know what, let's just cut bait and we'll move on here because we want to sign this guy who's actually going to be on the team. But like, do you think there's any world in which one of these 4 guys or any other replacement player that comes in could seize a job here? Does this feel like a roster that's ripe for that kind of sort of, guy to take over and grab a spot?
I think there's potential for them to make a claim for a spot later.
Sure.
So, maybe once all the guys are healthy, the Raptors just go back to status quo, but they do have that one empty roster spot.
They
right?
do, yeah.
And
for tax purposes, baby. I love a tax purposes open roster spot.
Exactly. So depending on how transactions shake out, in January or February, then if it's feasible, then you could see someone sliding into that and probably lean towards one of the forwards, because that's the way that the Raptors seem
Hell
to do
yeah.
this.
Hell yeah.
So yeah, I would say, if they're fighting for a spot, it's probably post February.
Yeah. And I'd
then,
even like add on to that and say, I think it's probably for a two-way spot they're fighting. I would imagine, Champagne, I'm not sure where he's at with his 50 days on his two-way, but like he's been good. He's had some moments.
So
He's
that's
had
one
some
thing I believe
flashes.
that has been changed, by the way.
Oh, has it?
With the hardship
I know it was
exception
last
coming
year.
in, they've
Yeah.
taken away the days, so they can play as much as they need to at the NBA level.
Okay, cool. That's good to know because I know they got rid of it last year. But either way, I could see Champagne potentially getting converted to an NBA contract, and then that second two-way coming open for one of these guys to potentially slide into later on in the season again, because they have that spot open for tax reasons right now. If they can move off Dragic, obviously that's like a big amount of money that they're no longer paying out to somebody, so maybe that makes it a little bit easier, and they can sign a couple of guys. But I'm intrigued to see if there's going to be more flashes we see from these guys, and I think Morgan, for me, kind of seemed to fit the bill of like, low usage but reliable type big who you can throw in there as like a fourth or fifth big, that type of thing. As far as Oturu, last night he goes 7 points, 2 of 4 shooting, 2 boards, played the fewest minutes of anyone on the team, just 20 minutes. He's been like crushing it in the G League so far for the Windy City Bulls, averaging north of 20 a game. He's been excellent in 7 or 8 games of action. Any impressions on Oturu from what you saw in his first game with the team?
Yeah, I mean, not too much.
Not too much. Too much.
Too much. Too much.
No, yeah. Don't indulge me. I'm an idiot. Don't.
Yeah, like maybe he can get on the offensive glass a little bit. That seemed to be something that he was at least trying to do, and I feel like you're just going to need more looks at him. And he again, we talk about the last minute situation. He was the last guy that was actually signed, right? Yeah. So his frame of mind would have been even slightly different than the other 3 guys coming in. So I think he's someone that I'd probably just need more of a look at, especially considering how quickly the game went south.
Yeah, it would have been really cool if we got more than 12 minutes of like meaningful close basketball to kind of draw stuff from. But hey, we can go back and rewatch that first quarter for the rest of time if we want. It's an all-timer. That was the thing about last night's game.
Quite the choice. Watch.
There will be people who do it. There are freaks out there who love it. There are freaks who we love, who are listeners of this podcast, who would absolutely go and do that. Guests of this podcast, 100%. Like, there's no way Lewis isn't going back and watching that game a couple times in the first quarter, at least. Love you, Lewis, but you're a deranged person, and that's why you're so good at your job. We are going to continue on and talk about probably the most impactful of the 4 replacement guys coming up in the final segment of the show with, of course, the segment that everybody's talking about is the dude of the game. That's coming up in just 1 second here. But first, I want to tell you about our friends over at Built Bar, who are wonderful, making the best tasting protein bars money can buy. And I highly recommend you go check out their website right now because seasonal flavors are abound over there all December long. You still got the week before the new year. You can go take advantage of some great deals and all of that. And of course, the best thing about Built Bar is you get the best of both worlds. It's delicious and healthy with a ton of flavors for you to choose from that gives you that extra fuel to get through your million holiday parties. Maybe you're like me and you've been indulging in a whole bunch of garbage food for the last 3 days. You need something to kind of wean yourself off and be a little bit healthier, maybe give you some fuel for a workout or something like that. Built Bar is your answer there. It is much better than eating 3 dozen shortbread cookies, which I think is what I've eaten in the last 3 days. And of course, you can, still indulge a little bit too. If you, for example, have a little cup of cocoa, maybe you got some nice artisanal hot chocolate for Christmas or something like that. You want to dip your Built Bar into that, you can, and it makes it a nice, delicious, melty treat that you can feel pretty good about. Plus, they've got the Built Bar Puffs as well. They're light, they're fluffy, they're marshmallowy through and through. Different flavors, all covered in chocolate. They taste so good, you won't believe they're filled with protein. Go to Built.com and use the promo code LOCKED15 to get 15% off your order. That is 15% off with LOCKED15 at Built.com. All right, let's round out the show here with Vivek Jacob and talk about the dude of the game. Of course, if you're a new listener to the show who's joined the masses of the audience after that last night's game, which would be an interesting jumping off point for a fan. But either way, if you're new to the show, the dude of the game is the segment where we talk about a guy who we have not yet talked about in depth in the first couple segments of the show. Not necessarily a star of the game, but someone who did some dude level stuff to help the Raptors achieve something good. And look, they lost by 45 points. There wasn't a whole lot of good in this one to pull from, but that first quarter we will cling to like nothing else. And the dude of the game, Vivek Jacob, is, of course, former Milwaukee Bucks player, guy who was drafted ahead of OG Anunoby by the Milwaukee Bucks. That's always a fun one. It is DJ Wilson, who is your dude of the game for the first time this season. This leaderboard is going to be whack by the end of the year, I think, Vivek. There's going to be some weird dudes who appear in here, but that's okay. We're happy to have them. DJ Wilson is due to the game. Thoughts on DJ Wilson, who put up 15 points, 8 points, 4 boards, 4 steals, and a block on 6 of 8 shooting?
Yeah, I think there's certain guys who in this situation who are getting that second chance and they come in and you can just see, I've sort of been here, done that, right? And he very much came in and played like a guy who has played in the NBA before.
Sure.
I thought he took good shots. I was pleasantly surprised by, his pull-up shooting in the mid-range. The ability to go to that shot as sort of a release valve was pretty cool. Defensively, obviously, the 4 steals were very exciting. But yeah, I think overall, when we go back to Nick Nurse doing a walkthrough 75 minutes before the game and going through 3 or 4 offensive sets and then just a little bit of defense and then just saying, hey, all I want is for you guys to play hard and, just play with freedom. And that's what DJ Wilson did. There was a play that probably went unnoticed. It was towards the end of the first half and Kevin Love missed a 3 and Wilson gets the rebound, comes down the floor. So he's bringing the ball up and from the left side, he throws a bounce pass to a cutting Utah. That ends up going out of bounds, or it was a steal. Either way, it was a turnover. But even that, like, to show that playmaking potential was something that I thought was pretty intriguing as well.
Yeah, I had a lot of fun watching the Watanabe's and 10 days lineup late in that first half last night. It was a pretty good time, even though they were down by a whole lot of points. I think, like, of all the guys we were talking about, if someone's going to be able to steal a job here, I think the most likely guy is DJ Wilson. He's the most established NBA guy, of course, spent a lot of years kind of just barely not breaking through with the Bucks and kind of always being on the cusp of it. And, maybe this is a situation where, big men take a longer time to develop. Maybe there's something there that the Bucks didn't tap into that the Raptors can, and they get this 10-day sort of audition to test it out. And, for a team that is lacking big men, although we say that they're lacking big men, they're lacking like traditional hulking large people, but like they have lots of guys who can play center minutes. That's not really the sort of, the thing that they're lacking. They have plenty of guys who can slide in there, but for a team that doesn't have guys who are 6'10", something that DJ Wilson very much is, maybe he does profile as someone they could take a longer look at with one of those extra roster spots or the 2-way if they convert Champagny and all that. So yeah, congrats to DJ Wilson. If nothing else, this NBA turn for him was a success because he won due to the game once, which really I can't imagine any higher honor, frankly. It's just, he can go and tell his family, I've tried to get back in the NBA, tried to stick. It didn't quite happen, but I did win that award on that podcast that one time. And I can hang that banner in my office, little shrine to myself for the rest of time. Any other stray thoughts on this game, Vivek? I mean, like we've talked 29 minutes about it, which is, I think, a testament to our quality as broadcasters. But what's any sort of last lingering thoughts here about the things you saw? Was there anything you were disappointed by when it came to the performances of other players? We talked about Yuta being so good, but the rest of the 3 main guys who were on the roster weren't exactly any great shakes. Any sort of lingering last thoughts here from the Raptors' loss in Cleveland? Hopefully their last game this depleted with potentially some guys coming back on Tuesday.
Yeah, I mean, I think the last thought would just be you saw why, if there were 4 guys you could sort of flip flop out of, protocols and in. These kind of 4 guys who had to play would probably be the ones, right? But between Boucher and Svi, that's just rough. But we know we're gonna get out of them. Delano, obviously, tough situation, playing for the first time in 2 weeks. You could see he wasn't up to game speed, wasn't up to game shape, and that showed. So, yeah, I think it's just a tough situation. Other than that, I guess we can end off on a bit of, good news. I had asked Nick Nurse because I knew he had plans with the school to give out a whole bunch of gifts and like meet all these kids at the practice facility. Obviously, that couldn't happen anymore, but they did still manage to send the gifts to the school.
Oh, great!
So that the kids could collect the gifts. So it's a holiday season, so at least finish off on a happy note.
Yeah, that's lovely. The Raptors always doing good community stuff around the holidays. You love to see it. We will hopefully have a little bit more to dive into when it comes to Tuesday's game against the Sixers. Hopefully some guys come back for that one, and it's a little bit more of a representative game. And look, I don't think this is going to end up being a similar situation to last year where basically a month of the calendar was lost. I think they've already been helped by having a couple games postponed. So if you're concerned about this sending the Raptors on some sort of tailspin down the standings, I don't think it's going to be quite that drastic or severe like it was last season when they were already extremely thin. They are a little bit deeper this season and have a little bit more in terms of guys who can kind of carry the day for you. So we'll see. But I think hopefully this is sort of the low point in this sort of COVID-racked section of the season for the team, and they can come back and hopefully start rattling off some wins here, as they did before getting afflicted by the virus. As you know, they had won 5 of 7 coming in. The Eastern Conference seems very gettable in terms of like the 5th and 6th seeds right now. So I still think that's so very much on the table, which is good. And it's nice to know, hopefully, that this section of the season is not going to spell total and utter doom like it did last year. We're also going to talk about Fred VanVleet on tomorrow's podcast and dig into his all-star case, but that's for tomorrow. Vivek Jacob, thank you for being here, man. It was a blast talking to you. As always, anything you would like to promote for the good people out there?
Usual stuff, Raptors.com, CBC Sports, Complex Canada, and you can follow me on Twitter at Vivek M. Jacob. Thanks for having me, Sean.
Of course, buddy. It's always a treat to have you on Mondays. For those of you out there, thank you so much for tuning in. As always, you can check out the show and support it for the low price of On the House on all your favorite podcast apps, as well as on YouTube. So please go ahead and do that. Again, on tomorrow's podcast, we'll be talking about Fred VanVleet and his all-star candidacy with guest TBD. I don't actually know who I'm going to bring on for that one, but we'll do it. I promise. It's going to be fun. And then hopefully we can talk about a real basketball game against the Sixers on Tuesday night on Wednesday morning's podcast. That's the next couple days lined up. I'm not going to make too many bold plans this week because it's the week between Christmas and New Year's, which means you shouldn't be doing anything, and nor should I. We will talk to you again on Tuesday with another episode of Locked On Raptors. Until then, bye-bye.